Hello everyone and welcome to our live online subject spotlight counselling skills session on Cummings, COVID-19 and core values in helping relationships as part of the University of Chester's online kitchen sessions programme. My name's Helen and I'm one of the schools and colleges liaison assistants at the university, and today I am joined by Cemil Egeli, who's senior lecturer in the social and political science faculty. He'll be delivering the session, so you can say hello, Cemil.
Hello.
Hello, you will see him shortly. And I'm also joined by Zoe, who'll be moderating any questions as they come in today. So you can say hello, Zoe.
Hi, everybody.
So in terms of how today will work, I'll shortly be handing over to Cemil for the presentation. And during the presentation, you will be given the opportunity to ask questions in the chat function on the right-hand side of the screen. Your audio and video won't be shared, but you can ask questions anonymously if you wish. You just need to have ticked the box to say you wish to be anonymous. You can like other questions that people may have asked and answer any questions that Cemil may ask by responding in the chat function. Zoe will collate any questions and ask Cemil these at the end of the session. If there isn't time to answer all questions, the answers will be published on the website at a later date. At the very end, you'll have the opportunity to complete a short evaluation form, and any links that we put up during the presentation will also be available on the recording. Okay, so I think we're about ready to start. I'm just going to get Cemil ready. So when you're ready, Cemil, off you go.
So am I live now?
You are.
Great, fantastic. So welcome to Counselling Skills. I'm Programme Leader for the Counselling Skills programme, and today we're looking at Counselling Skills, Cummings, COVID-19 and core values in the helping relationship. A lot of C's in there. So what do these all mean with each other? Well, let's have a look. I'm trying to get my slides to move, and yes, that's moving. So today's aim, we're going to explore ideas around values in the helping relationship and see how wider events might be relevant to them. So what relevance has Dominic Cummings got to counselling skills in a sense? And the steps that we'll do to achieve this is we'll look at what counselling skills might be, look at ethics a little bit, and look at what we might mean by values, and then look at the current social and political context and sort of use that as a kind of model or a case study, if you will, as to how we could explore our own values through it. So firstly, counselling skills. That's what my programme is, our programme is. There are many ways and situations in which counselling skills may be used. So when we're using our helping skills, it could be a teacher, it could be a manager with an employee, social worker, pastoral worker, working in criminal justice, local government, a minister, therapist. The list is almost endless. So you can use counselling skills in lots of different contexts and situations, as well as being a counsellor as in itself, a counsellor or therapist in itself. So when we're working with these skills, we have the need for ethics when using counselling skills or counselling, and it often involves situations that might have responses to unexpected issues, and you might have a dilemma or solutions to problems. I mean, this could be a disclosure of some kind, or it could be you bump into a client or someone you work with in a supermarket, or someone contacts you on social media, all kinds of things. And so we need ethical guidance and awareness when working with these situations. So what do we mean by ethics? I mean, we've not got much time here, and so this is very, very sort of simplistic, but broadly ethics, a branch of philosophy, maybe that's concerned with human character and conduct, a system of morals or rules of behaviour, a concept that determines the definition of right or wrong, especially when applied to interactions between people. These are simplistic dictionary definitions, but broadly, we're looking at what the right thing to do in certain situations might be. And that's really, really important, understanding ethics, and it's a big component that underpins what we do on the course. So ethics and values, our values are linked together. So the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy say values are a useful way of expressing our general ethical commitments that underpin the purpose of our goals and our actions. So understanding values is really important. And what do we mean by values? So We could say that values are what is considered important or good in life. And there are different kinds of values. We have our personal values, and we've got organizational values too. So here I'm going to have a look at various different organizations, and starting with the counselling, BACP. I've chosen some of their values. They've got a massive, big list of values, a long list of values. And so some of the fundamental values of counselling and psychotherapy include a commitment to respecting human rights and dignity. So respecting there, alleviating symptoms of personal distress, enhancing people's well-being, and appreciating the variety of human experience and culture, and striving for the fair and adequate provision of services. So you'll see that within those values, if you could reduce them down to words, you've got respect, enhancing well-being, appreciating human experience and culture in there. Comparing it to, say, the values of the NHS, this is a more organisational values. So what are their values? They say they have 6 values that apply to all staff, be it doctors, nurses, gardeners that work there, anyone that works under that umbrella have the work within these 6 values. So that's like working together for patients, respect and dignity, commitment to care quality, compassion, improving lives, and everybody counts. And you can see that there are some similarities there, the idea of respect. Likewise, the army, courage, discipline, respect for others, integrity, loyalty, selfless commitment. So that's reduced to 7 values there, and these are parallel kinds of words and ideas. If we're looking at Facebook, they may be slightly different. They have core values, which is about being bold, focus on impact, move fast, be open, build social values. So you can see how values can be tied into the type of industry or workplace that there may be. Values in schools. So in about, I think it was 2014, I might be wrong, but the government said we should promote fundamental British values in school. And this was decided as being democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, mutual respect, and tolerance for those with different faiths and beliefs. And these were decided as British values that schools should promote. And interestingly, recently, and I just, again, how this sits with value systems, the government has said that you can't use anti-capitalist material. Maybe I'm misquoting the government here, but it was anything that states a desire to abolish capitalism or overthrow capitalism can't be used. And I've highlighted that word because there's other things there like democracy and an end to free and fair elections, but I'm highlighting the capitalist word there because that's an economic system, and that challenged me and challenged my values, because I was thinking, if we've got individual liberty and mutual respect and we're going to be democratic, then surely being able to critically appraise an economic idea such as capitalism is okay, surely. So maybe I've got that wrong, but that's how sometimes values can be in tension with each other, because I would say, you know, being able to critically understand critical education, then surely that would be allowed, or is that not allowed? I don't know. I don't want to misquote anything here. So moving on, Johnson vows to defend common values with Joe Biden. So even on an international level, we find we have values. And what does that mean? What are common values? But it's a word that is used, and it's important to understand what they might mean. So on a personal level, arguably, every decision we make is underpinned by what we value in life, every action or inaction, and that values shape everything we do. A quote there from Proctor. And if that's the case, then literally everything we do. I got up today, for instance, if I was to take my kids to school, there's a value in that. The schools that I may have picked for my kids, was that influenced by my values? The fact that I might have breakfast, what I choose for breakfast, is that influenced by nutrition and what I might value in that? The fact that I had breakfast at all or didn't, if I brushed my teeth, you know, is that to do with values, to do with oral or dental hygiene or health? So values are there around almost everything we do. You know, I chose to wear the clothing we wear. You might put on a suit if you go for a job interview, or you know, is that expressing a value? Is that expressing something that underpins that? And what's behind these values? So a value could be defined as an orientation or a way that we act in a certain way, and it sort of has a behavioural quality to it. The Oxford Dictionary says it's principles or standards of behaviour and one's judgment of what is important in life. So what's important to you? You know, what's important in life, and how might you see your values? From a counselling perspective, personal values are core beliefs which influence how we act, and they influence how we might act personally and professionally. We manage our values in the helping process if we're using our counselling skills, which are tied to our own worldviews. And it's important that we don't, according to Corey here, it's important that we don't impose our values on others. And if we're not going to impose our values on others, it's important to understand what is valuable to us and what our own personal values might be. So the values of counselling would focus on respecting a client's values, experiences, thoughts and their feelings, and their capacity or their autonomy or capacity for self-determination, and aiming to serve the best interests of the client. So there's a list of words here. I've kind of reduced values to a list, and there's quite a few words there. But, you know, what is valuable to you? What words would stick out for you as being valuable? Is it being independent? Is it being funny? Is it being loyal? What we might say, reliable, careful, critical, friendly, kind, rich, reliable, having a good time. Is that important? Being honest, powerful, competitive, lots of things, do lots of things. So, I mean, and behind these values, I mean, we've not got time here to totally unpick this, but behind these values, what might be behind that? Why, if honesty is valuable to you, is it because you might have experienced dishonesty? Is it important to be friendly? You know, what maybe you've experienced friendship and that's why it's important. How about being rich? You know, is that a value? Maybe it's a financial value. Maybe you want financial independence and it ties into independence. Being careful, loyal. So these are key words here, and I don't know if anybody's Helen. I don't know if anybody's saying anything or any thoughts on this. But have a think. You know, what is valuable to you, and what your values might be, and where these values come from. Do they come from key figures, parent figures, carer figures, teachers, or is it peers, friends, or is it celebrities? Is it like an artist that you've listened to? Is it someone that you really feel you know, passionate about? An artist, a singer, a songwriter, an actor? These values could come from anywhere. So have a think. Whilst I just have a cup of tea, and I value a good cup of tea in the afternoon. So is that culturally informed? I don't know. So
they're being a bit shy in the chat at the moment.
Shy in the chat. Don't be shy. Please speak up. Feel free to speak up. Right, my slides are going in all kinds of directions. So one way to start to map our own moral beliefs and values is to think about proverbs and sayings that you might use in everyday life. So I've put some up here. Whoops, going the wrong way. My slides are going backwards. Whoops. Here we go. So, sayings. The top one, stuff happens. Well, I did that, and that's maybe some of my values too. I appreciate it's pre-watershed. I don't want to offend anybody or lose my job or anything like that. So I filled out those things with little symbols. But is that a value that appeals to you? What goes around comes around. It could be worse. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Or how about this one? Be the change you want to see in the world. Or smile and the whole world will smile back. And we could go through these. Believe it, achieve it, draw a line, get over it, just go for it, or two wrongs don't make a right. I'll give you a couple of moments just to have a look at that. Not too long, but are there any other phrases or sayings that people might have that mean something to you, and it'd be really great if you could share them at this point. You know, if there's something that jumps to mind, let me know.
We have had a couple of comments come in now, Cemil, so Zoe could read through them.
Yep. Hello, Zoe.
Hi. Okay, so we have a few that's come through for the values that we were talking about earlier. So someone's just shared with us that one of their values is just being reliable.
Right.
There's one here that also says, I think what I find to be valuable is very similar to what my parents considered to be valuable. Perhaps
Right.
I haven't even questioned some values and checked in that they are mine.
Wow, brilliant.
And there are, do you want me to just go through them and then you can speak about them after, yeah?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I think this is really just a couple more if you've got time.
Yeah, of course, yes. So a value is something that is personal to you, so subjective, and not necessarily backed up by an ethical framework was the last one there. Like I think one more may have just through as well. Let me just have a look. So now we've got a few of these sayings as well. So someone said, treat other people as you wish to be treated.
Oh, wow. I think that's the golden rule, isn't it? That's the golden rule. Treat everybody as you would wish to be treated yourself.
Yes, exactly. And then the other ones that have come through are questions that I'll share with you later. So there's not any more right now, but if any more do come in the next few moments, I will let you know, okay?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much for that. And thanks to everybody that wrote something in, because this is all valuable stuff about values. And some of the comments there were really, really interesting where they came from. It could be from what parents have said, treat other people like you'd like to treat yourself, or like you'd like to be treated yourself. So these
just come through now, actually, that says it's hard to know your values when they are so intrinsic to how you see the world. Managing them can be hard work.
Wow, managing values. Well, yeah, I think that's really, really that's really, really powerful. And I'm not sure if it's necessarily about, for me at least, it's not about managing them. It's about understanding what they are. And if we know our values, then it's knowing where we sit with another person when we're in that helping relationship, and understanding that they have values coming from their experience and their situation, and making sure that we don't impose our values necessarily on theirs, and understanding what those values are. So that's really, really interesting stuff. And this phrases is an exercise. Something like this, we might spend a lot more time on it and see where, unpick them a little bit more. Some of them are quite throwaway phrases, but it'll be interesting if you bear some of these phrases in mind when we look at the case coming up of Dominic Cummings, and see if any of these phrases might even apply or appeal to that as well. So we might come back to this a little bit later. Now, hopefully my slides will move in the right direction. Kind of look, they feel like they're frozen, but no, there we go. So I mentioned Dominic Cummings. I assume most people will know who he is. He's a chief advisor, I think that's his official title, to the government. I know he was a special advisor at one point, but now he's chief advisor to the Prime Minister. And very famously, he took a journey to his home in Durham from London. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'll give a little bit of background on that. And we'll see how this taps into our values, perhaps, or wider values as well, and how values come through in this as well. So sometimes in assessing what our values might be, you can look at a case like this, look at what might be happening in politics, what might be happening in the media, and see, well, how does that impact us? What do we feel about that? And sometimes how we might react to this, or might be an indication of what our personal values might be. So Dominic Cummings, we've had lockdown. We're in a second lockdown now, but this seems such a long time ago. This first sign, stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. And Dominic Cummings may have been responsible for this slogan, or part of the team that was responsible for it perhaps. But this was a strong message that was coming out at the time in the first lockdown, as we stayed in, and that had changed to green, which feels maybe a little safer, but stay alert, control the virus and save lives. And I think currently we're on hands, face and space. Unless I've missed something, I think that is still even though we're in a second lockdown, we're still on hands, face and space. So there's these messages coming on about how we tackle this situation coming from government, and Dominic Cummings was a part of that. But whilst we were staying at home or we were being required to do that, and Mr. Cummings here decided that he would drive 400 kilometres north to his parents' farm because he feared he couldn't look after his young son. It then emerged he'd driven to a northeast beauty spot with Wakefield and their child during the lockdown. So that's coming from The Guardian, and these maybe alleged events. I think he's admitted to some of them. And there's a map of the timeline and events of what sort of things he did. So I'm thinking, as the people, as the country were urged to be in lockdown, apart from key workers at that time, Dominic Cummings took it that to drive across the country. Now, as we're testing our values, what does this mean to us? Are people bothered about this? Are people angry about this? What's it saying about Dominic's values? I can't speak for his values. I can't say what his values are, but he expressed certain reasons which might be an indication of what those values might be, perhaps, and how they might jar with people's values or not. So, and there are lots of factors in this. There's the distance. You know, he drove across the country. If he'd have done this and driven 5 miles up the road, would that have made a difference? You know, he had to stop and get petrol, perhaps. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but he stopped off, got petrol. Is that a factor? Would that be spreading the virus? The fact that he thought he had symptoms, is that another factor? Is his power a factor in this? Should he be setting an example? Or should he have been setting an example? If he is writing the slogan, has he got more of a duty to obey those rules and that slogan? Has he got more of a duty to do that because of his power, or because of his power was it more difficult perhaps for him to find childcare anonymously? So lots of different factors at play here, and you can look at the map. But he also was testing his eyesight at one point, so he took a drive to test his eyesight. I think that's what I heard him say. So there's lots of other little things that were happening here that might have raised questions about the ethics of the decisions he took, and were these ethics informed by his values? And he said he was trying to do the best thing by his family. So in support of Dominic Cummings, I think he allegedly said, I'm not going to say what Dominic Cummings actually said because I don't know. I think he followed the instincts of every father and every parent, and I do not mark him down for that. So Johnson there, Prime Minister Johnson, Boris Johnson, said he was instinctually looking after his child as a parent. Is that tapping into a certain value system of being a parent? Or is that trying to tap into our values about what we might feel about our parent figures, or if we are parent figures to other people, what might that be saying? And equally, Boris said, you know, he acted responsibly and legally. Was it legal? Was it responsible? Even if it was legal, was it responsible? Can we separate those words ethically? Was it not? Or was it both? More support from Matt Hancock on Twitter. So Dom Cummings, very familiar, was right today to set out in full detail how he made his decisions in very difficult circumstances. So is this about values? Well, he was making decisions in difficult circumstances. So now we must move on and fight this dreadful disease and get our country back on her feet. So in there's quite a lot. There's the sort of the gendering of the nation, but there's also now we must move on. Is that, if we go back to that values list, is that a kind of get over it type value that he might have? Maybe other people felt the same. Maybe other people thinking, well, this is so serious that one person breaking rules, maybe we need to move on. Maybe that's what some people might think. The Chancellor, Again, tapping into this idea of taking care of people, taking care of your wife and young child is justifiable and reasonable. What sort of values are that? Are these kind of conservative family values or something, trying to score political points, says the politician. So they're people in support, and they're tapping into sort of value systems. It's the idea that Mr. Cummings was taking care, his priority, his values were his family and looking after them. And that's a certain, coming from a certain perspective. On the opposition, we've got one rule for Dominic Cummings, another rule for everybody else. Again, it taps into that saying sheet that we might have, these internalized values that we might have. So he said that he treated the British people with contempt. He might have treated his family okay, but he was treating the wider populace with contempt, and maybe in his position he should have had more responsibility. And this another tweet from somebody on that thread, you know, they're furious, made sacrifices, especially those who couldn't even say goodbye to loved ones or be there for them, undermines the sacrifice we've put in to protect others. So here we see, you know, there's that value of sacrifice. We've recently had Remembrance Sunday, and you know, these are the idea that people make sacrifices for others is a very strong value. And if the country was making sacrifices together and collectively, if one person who is close to the top in terms of political power is not making the same sacrifice, should they be making more of a sacrifice? Piers Morgan, who's been a politician, I was going to call Piers a politician, maybe he is, but he's a journalist, very vocal. He said, well, he self-isolated with coronavirus symptoms, drove hundreds of miles, and he should be fired. Fire him tonight, Prime Minister, he demanded. Or why should anybody heed your lockdown rules? So again, this is tapping into the idea that Dominic maybe should have been setting an example. And basically, if people are going to heed the rules, then the people making the rules need to heed them themselves. Meanwhile, in Scotland, two prominent figures, the Chief Medical Officer for Scotland and a Scottish SNP MP, both resigned due to taking extended journeys during the lockdown period. So maybe Scotland set a different example, and maybe that impacted on people's views of this as well. If Scotland can do that, why is it different for an English politician or an English person in power in relation to this? And then recently we've got this alleged dossier that Cummings may have perverted the course of justice. So and if that's the case, that's legal. If that's the case, then that's breaking the law. And does that change it? Does that change the value? Does that change what it did? And it's going back to the idea of responsibility or legal. Was it irresponsible, or was it legal, or a bit of both? Asking those questions if that was the case. So what does this mean for you? And how does this tap into your values? And if we're looking at this, you know, from a counselling skills perspective, perhaps, you know, if someone like Dominic Cummings, you were there to be working in a helping capacity, you're working alongside him and his team, or, you know, you were one of his lawyers, or you were actually working therapeutically with him, how would that, you know, how would your values be impacted by what he did? And looking at that story, I mean, are you bothered by what happened? Maybe you sat there thinking, who's Dominic Cummings? I'm not bothered by this. It's just another person at the top doing what they want. Maybe you're not bothered for other reasons. Was it responsible or was it legal? Does that matter? Does the legality of it matter? Is it, you know, are your values based on legal, the law? When I said before, if I was teaching in a school and critiquing certain economic systems, would I be breaking the law, and would that be a problem? Or is it a problem? He needed to apologise. Do you think apology would be sufficient? Some people might feel that apology is sufficient. If there's anybody out there now, if you've got any views to share, that would be really helpful. Should he have been punished? Should he have resigned? Should he have been sacked? Or do you think he was doing the best that he could in very difficult circumstances? Or anything else, if you've got any ideas? Has anybody Zoe, has anybody said anything whilst I have another swig of tea?
We've had a fair few bits through, so I'll share a few with you.
Right.
Someone said he should have been punished in the same way as a member of the public would have.
Right.
People are saying,
I guess he is a member of the public, isn't he? So yeah.
Yeah, people are saying that they were angry at the time, and like it felt like there was one rule for some, another rule for everybody else. Someone just said, anyone, whether it is in a position of power, is liable to make human mistakes. The problem comes when their position of power means they are not subjected to the same consequences as other humans. So all in that kind of.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, really interesting. Some really interesting ideas. So there's the power, but it's the way they're treated as a result of that power, perhaps. And it takes us into our value. How do we value power, and what does that mean to us, and what does that mean to us in a helping relationship? Because quite often, as helpers, we might be perceived to be in a powerful position. You know, if you're a teacher, if you're a social worker, you might be in a powerful position, a more powerful position to the person you're helping. If you were helping Dominic Cummings, then that power differential's slightly different. And what does that mean for that? But also from this, there's a lot of people's values coming through. So what does that tell us about our own values? And again, you know, this is an extreme, very famous example of something that's happened in politics in this current situation. But you know, what does it mean on a more local level? What does it mean on a more local understanding of what we value in life? So I hope that those connections make some kind of sense. Currently, we've got protests against lockdown as well. So there's different narratives happening, and again, that might raise different feelings in people with regards to this. Some people may be supportive, some people not, you know, that are actually thinking we've done all this and is this going to undermine everything that we're doing? Or maybe some people are somewhere in between that. Okay, it's okay to have that opinion, but maybe express it in a more socially distanced way, perhaps. So I don't know, there's lots of different narratives. So I'm coming close to the end here. What does this mean for counselling skills? And I think I've expressed that quite a bit. And I've got a picture here of a group of people that live near me. They all live together in one house. A group, I think, students, not from Chester. And they said they put up this sign during lockdown: we all live together, stop shaking your heads. And I took the picture. They allowed me to distantly take the picture. And they had a small garden out the front, or piece of concrete out the front of the house, and there's a multiple occupancy house, and they got quite a lot of judgment from the public because they were locking down, they were following the rules, but because there was a large group of them in a large house in a small garden, they got a lot of people shaking their heads and making negative comments, and indeed called the police a couple of times as well. So they had to explain who they were, and they were living there and not breaking any rules. So again, there was during that period, it tested our values. It tested the people were making judgments. They were trying to do the right thing and the legal thing, but were still facing judgment for it. Meanwhile, close to the top, people maybe doing things and not facing anywhere near those consequences, arguably. So how has COVID impacted our values? I think if I'm going to speak for myself, I mean, it's impacted values broadly. You know, even in teaching, I really value face-to-face teaching. It's something that I may well have taken for granted. I hadn't even really thought too much about it, but now I think, yeah, values. I do value personal freedom to be able to go out and go shopping for things and not have to walk in a one-way system. So it's kind of made me step back and think about the wider freedoms and stuff that are being impacted by this pandemic, and it makes me realise you know, it's brought to my awareness some of my values. So in a sense, have my values changed? I don't know if they've actually changed, but I'm more aware of them. How might this impact helping relationships? Well, I think I've kind of explained in a way. It's understanding those values and even things, yeah, social distancing. You know, if we're doing that thing, we have to maintain those distances, maintain those rules, maintain those safety standards as well. So there's lots of different impacts on that, but about the values that come out. So if I was helping someone that had been you know, protesting and not socially distancing, how might that impact the helping relationship, and how might I manage those having different values to people? Perhaps if that was the case, I'm kind of using that as an example, but I don't know if there's any feedback from anybody else. Has anything else come through?
Let me just have a look for you. There's quite a few different things that have come through actually, that when we do the questions, if you want, instead what we can do is you'll be able to have once you finish your presentation, you'd be able to then have a look at them at the side if you'd like to, and have a chat about them all together. Would that be easy?
Yeah, I can try. Yeah, it seems like lots to read, lots of stuff. So I'm kind of excited, and yeah,
they're all quite. It's all on a similar. Everyone's kind of agreeing with each other. It's nice. So if you want to have a look at them, we'd be able to do that now if you'd like to. If you want to.
Yeah. So I think this is close to the end actually. It is any questions time. So yes, so yeah, I'm really happy to do that. I've put a few references up here from some of the literature that I've drawn on, and a lot of the literature I've drawn on is counselling based literature, obviously, because that's well, if anything's obvious, but it's related to counselling skills. So yes, any questions that would be really good to see, and I really appreciate people taking the time to put comments in there. I'll see what we can see. I can't see much else at the moment.
No, of course, that's fine. So if you want to stop sharing your presentation, then you will be able to see the questions at the side. Well, I'll read the questions, but if you just wanted to have a look at the discussion, right, that's all. But I'll read out the questions for you first anyway. So
what do I do? Do I put show conversation?
Yeah, so just the Q&A at the side, the live event Q&A at the side. Can you see that? Yeah, if not, don't worry, I can just read them out.
No, I can't. Yeah, I can't really see it.
That's absolutely fine. So one of the first questions was, do you think counselling skills is political?
Well, I think, I mean, this has been a kind of political, well, it has been a political discussion, I suppose. So it's a really, really good question. Is counselling skills political? Yes, in a word, I would say yes, because we use our skills in lots of different contexts and lots of different social contexts. And I think because of that, and lots of different occupations, so like I've referred to teaching, social work, and these are all, I would say, politically situated. Some people might disagree with that. Within counselling itself, a lot of the theories arguably are not political. People would say, well, it's not really political, it's about the person, and it's kind of separated from the context that we're in, the psychological theories. So when we're studying counselling skills, we do look at the whole landscape, and so we'll explore the theories. It's not all politics, but I would like to suggest that yes, counselling is a politically situated activity. We've got a context that we live in, and so yes, for me it is, but there may be people that would disagree.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, so there's one that's saying, if you feel strongly about something, how do you prevent that impacting your work supporting someone? That's
a really lots of good questions, and that's a really good question to think. It's difficult, you know, how would you, and I think some of this is awareness, so it's being aware of it in the first place, and that's why it's important to look at what your values are and understand what your own personal context is. So firstly, it's important to be aware of that, and once you are aware of that, as a counsellor, I would take that to supervision and work through it and work a way through it and not allow it. It's about sometimes there's different levels of, it could be an extreme level, if it was an extreme political level or something like that possibly, but I think on a different level, it's about being able to set it aside. So if it's a matter of, it's almost like being with the person, but not not allowing your values to impact that. So it's being able to set your own stuff aside if you possibly can. I would do that through, as a counsellor, I'd do that through supervision as well. It's one of the ways in which it, and it's about being non-judgmental as well. So recognizing that other people have, have their values and their perspectives. I hope that makes sense. I tend to,
I think that does make sense. It's not a straightforward yes or no answer, is it? It's just about you perceiving your work and being able to support others in a way that is at that certain time.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have. Sometimes it's very difficult to have straightforward answers like you do this and you do that, and there are ways in which we can approach things, but it's not always that straightforward. It's maintaining that non-judgmental attitude.
Perfect. Okay, we've got another one here. What are the connections between values, justice and fairness, and how do you feel these apply to the Cummings example through this lens?
Right, values of justice and fairness, and how does it apply to Cummings through this lens? Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I can see, how does it apply to Cummings? I don't know if it actually directly applies to him, but I can see that I can see how it appears maybe unfair and unjust that someone in a position of power can do what seems to be what they want to do without having to answer to it, even though they did answer it, but the answers were not really kind of, I'm not sure what people would expect. Would it, so there was a kind of acknowledgement that they did it, but no sort of acknowledgement that it might not have been fair. So I think it's really hard for an answer that how it might apply, but I think some acknowledgement from some perspective, some acknowledgement from Cummings might have been helpful. I think possibly even something like an apology or something that it might not have broken the law, but was it a reasonable thing to do? Or maybe they thought it was reasonable at that time, but on reflection, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I've not got an answer really. But
to be fair, a few people have shared some thoughts about that anyway. I can share these with you if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, someone said, I value rules and authority strongly because that is what I have always been taught to do. When someone in a position or power or with social responsibility breaks rules, it makes me question that value. So there's another one as well that says, the Dominic Cummings example magnifies the inequalities that then impact on attitudes towards facing guidance and believing the information being shared and what is being requested.
Right. So I missed that last one. What was the last one?
Says the Dominic Cummings example magnifies inequalities that then impacts on attitudes towards facing guidance and believing the information being shared, and then what is requested as well.
Yeah, that's quite a powerful one. So it challenges, and I think it challenges people's values, because if people are valuing rules and authority, and if people are valuing information, and it's quite important that we've got the pandemic, we're getting information from these sources that are telling us how to manage it and telling us how it's going to be managed and what to do. So I suppose if trust in that system is eroded by the behaviors of somebody that is there, then that's really, really important. I think that's what that was saying. Along with that, there's the idea of inequalities and injustice as well, sitting alongside that. So I think there's lots of dynamics at play there, lots of values and conflicting values going on. Maybe
there have been quite a few things like that sent through, but obviously I haven't had time to be able to send them all. But I tried to share with you the ones that kind of give an idea of what everyone's been saying. There is just one more question for you as well. This should be a quick one for you. Basically, it's just how do I find out more about counselling skills at Chester? So specifically about the course at Chester, how can we find out more information about that from?
Yeah, I suppose that is when you said a quick question, is there such thing? But then, yeah, I think counselling skills. I'm happy to speak to anyone as program leader. They can get in. People can get in touch with me directly. I think my email may be available. I'm not sure if it's on, if it'll be up anywhere like that, or they can get in touch with social and political science department, and then I can speak to them or my colleague as well. So. Get in touch. I'm happy to speak to people about the course at greater length and yeah, answer any other questions more specific.
We can share your email address in the chat if you'd like us to.
Yeah, have you got my email address there? Yeah,
share it in. We can share it in the chat for you.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm very happy to speak to anybody that would like to talk.
And people did ask about the open days. Well, I've answered when it is, but I'll just put a link in the chat as well, just for some more information about the open days, but we can do that for you. So that's all from me, okay?
Yeah, and I can speak on open days. I think or my colleague might be there on open days as well, so there'll be somebody there that can answer questions about the course.
That's great, Cemil. Well, thank you very much. That was a really interactive session in the end, so that was really good. So thank you, Zoe, for fielding all the questions. Just going to finish off now by saying that there is a link for an evaluation form in the chat. If you wouldn't mind, while you're still on, following the link. There's only 4 questions. It doesn't take long, but it does help us when working on these sessions to help inform us for future ones. As Zoe mentioned, she's also going to put the link for the open day. The next virtual open day is Saturday, the 5th of December, where you can join and speak to academics about the courses, and particularly about the counselling course if you've been interested in this session as well. So all that's left for me to say then is, again, thank you very much to Cemil, thank you to Zoe, thank you to everybody who's attended. If you do have a few moments, if you wouldn't mind completing that evaluation form, that would be really good. If you're interested in watching any more events, if you go onto our webpage, there is a list of all events which are happening over the next few weeks. So we hope to see you again soon. So thank you, everybody.
I'd like to say thanks. Thank you.
And we'll hopefully see you at the next one. Bye now.